Look, we're here from with HBCU to start up. We're here with CODE2040, one of the people from the program itself, and one of their fellows, Sade Page. And we're here to talk about the CODE2040 application process, their program, and just an overview of what this program does to bring more minorities into Silicon Valley and give them internship experience. So I guess let's start things off and have Philip introduce himself, and then Sade as well.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. Just getting the word out for the CODE2040 Fellows Program and just all of the work we're doing. So my name's Philip Loya. I am the National Student Recruitment Manager at CODE2040. So my job is basically to go to schools, visit schools, talk to students virtually, obviously, like this, or in person, online, via email, and talk to them about CODE2040 and some of the great programs that we're running for students. So that's a little bit about me. My background is not in tech. I'm not I don't have a tech degree, but I come from a background of recruitment and working with specifically with low-income underrepresented students, trying to get them to college. So I've been at CODE2040 now for about 7 months, and it's been a really great experience, and hopefully I can answer some questions that y'all might have about the application process, as well as what it's like to interview and intern at one of our partner companies. So I'll pass it along to you, Sade.
Hello everyone, my name is Sade Page. I am a senior computer science major at Howard University. I completed the CODE2040 fellowship program this past summer, and I also interned with Pandora. So if you have any questions about those, I can answer them for you.
Cool. So I guess just for anybody who's not super familiar with CODE2040, can you give us some background about the program and kind of an overview, Philip?
Yeah, for sure. So CODE2040 is a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping underrepresented folks, specifically Black and Latino students, a way in or a path to the innovation economy, the tech economy. So the way we do that is through multiple programs. Two that I recruit for, the Technical Applicant Prep Program, as well as, or TAP, as well as the Fellows Program. So a little bit about TAP, because it does relate to the Fellows Program. So TAP was created, what it is, it's online, in-person platform that we have that helps students get an internship. Like if you start from today, what are the things and steps that I need to do in order to get an internship a year from now? So the way we do that is we have an applicant playbook online that's just like a big resource for you, open to everyone, and you have like month by month, or what are the things that you should be doing, personal projects, school projects, etc., finding mentors and whatnot. We also do in-person workshops as well as weekend-long retreats where we go over, bias and imposter syndrome, resume building, tech interviewing, whiteboarding interview practice, behavioral interview practice, all of that great stuff. So the reason why TAP was created was because of our Fellows Program. So our Fellows Program is our flagship program where we partner and match top tech students, computer science, computer engineering, software engineer students with tech companies in the San Francisco Bay Area. So what we've learned over the last 5 years or so of the Fellows Program is that a lot of underrepresented folks, specifically Black and Latino folks, don't necessarily have the tools or know or have the resources to even interview or get an interview at a tech company. So that was why TAP was created, to help students, all students, as many as we can, in order to at least at the minimum practice these skills and build their resume. With the Fellows Program, it's an 8-week summer program in the San Francisco Bay Area. We have students from all over the country come out. You work 40 hours a week at a tech company. So Sade worked at Pandora. Some of our other partner companies include what Apple, Intel, Intuit, Airbnb, Lyft. I think we have, as of last Friday, 39 partner companies signed on. So anywhere from the really small startup to a giant organization like Apple or Pandora. Pandora's not giant, but giant name. So what the students do, or what our fellows do, is 40 hours of interning, and you're working on pretty much mission critical projects. So you're not just like pushing papers or making copies or grabbing people's coffee. You're actually coding. You're, working on projects that go live to different folks, or to their entire population of users. So while you're interning 1 to 2 times a week, we also have weekly workshops and speaker series. So the workshops include things like how to be an effective engineer, iOS and Android development. Our speaker series include talks with venture capitalists, talks with entrepreneurs, with people that have started, founders of startups and other bigger organizations. We do media training, design thinking. So we do all of that throughout the summer as well, on top of your entire work week. We have some weekend events. It's really busy weekend, or busy 8 weeks, as Sade can probably attest to. But what ends up happening is on the weekends we'll have a hackathon over the weekend. We do an alumni summit. We have a reverse career fair. So instead of you going up to companies and saying, like, I really want to work for you, we set you up with your own station, with your resumes and profiles and your laptop, and companies come up to you and say, like, we really want you to work for us. So we do that throughout the summer, or we do that at one point in the summer. So and then we have fun, like barbecues, and we had a game of codes where we just kind of competed with each other. Sade was on my team, so we were good. We ended up, so that's kind of like the gist of the overall summer. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of networking, it's a lot of getting to know other people. And one thing that I would mention is that all of our workshops and our speaker series are held at the different headquarters of our partner companies. So, one day you might be at the Lyft headquarters, one day you might be at the Slack headquarters, another workshop you're at one of our small startup companies. So you really get to see the whole gamut of like what companies offer. One of the things that I guess is usually the eye catcher is that if they're paid internships, so you're actually getting paid a minimum of $1,000 a week. So so you're getting paid pretty well, and that's the minimum. Some companies compensate in other ways as well. So on top of the $1,000 a week, you're also getting maybe a housing stipend, or maybe you're getting food every day, or you're getting, or you have catered lunch or catered dinner a couple times a week. So it really kind of depends on the company. So at the minimum, you're getting paid. You're working in the Bay Area. You're meeting a bunch of people. We had 35 fellows this last summer. Next summer, we're looking to have 80 fellows. So we're more than doubling our amount of fellows. So we need and want as many people as possible to apply and to become fellows. So that's a little bit about TAP and more about what our fellows program entails. Sade, I don't know if I missed out on anything. That I know is a crazy busy summer.
Nothing that I can think of now. You said a lot.
Cool. I just want to make sure everybody knows, as you're watching this Hangout live with us, you can post your questions. There should be an icon up top or to the left that should say Q&A, or just a place where you can post your questions, and we'll be able to see them and then answer your questions throughout this call. But while we are waiting to have your questions pour on in, I guess let's hear from Sade. How did your application process go, and just how did you hear about CODE2040 and end up in the program?
So I actually found out CODE2040 at Grace Hopper conference, where me and you actually went. Me and Hannah went. We stopped at their booth and met the people there, and then we went to like a dinner where we got to meet the founder, Laura, like in person, and she talked to us more in depth about what CODE2040 was, because it's not really that known. It's kind of really smaller, and they're trying to get more known and stuff. So once we got to talk to her, like I got to really like learn like what Code 2040 is and learn their mission, and like I really fell in love with it, like because clearly I'm a Black female in tech, and I'm really like for like diversifying the tech. So of course I applied. I also was interviewing with Pandora at the same time, so I didn't need to finish the technical aspect of the application, but I did end up getting Pandora first, and then after that I got Code 2040. So I'm not sure if they're allowing you to do that way this year. I don't know, Philip, if y'all are allowing that, but if you get an internship with a company that's already partnered with Code 2040, then that could also help you solidify your chances of being a fellow. So that's basically how I got into Code 2040 and interned at Pandora.
Cool, cool. So, how was your interview process? Like, what types of questions were you asked after you submitted your initial application?
With Pandora or with Code 2040 or both?
Let's do both, actually.
Okay. So I interviewed with Pandora first, and they look at your resume. They say, "Hey, you're a fit with this team." So then you get a 30-minute phone call with two people in that team. I happened to speak to one of my team members who ended up being my mentor there, and then I also spoke to my manager. They were really behavioral questions. I would say they weren't necessarily like really technical and like trying to get you to say, "Hey, how do you reverse a tree on the phone?" Like it was really like personal. I really liked the way Pandora like really try to get to know the person and see like where their technical strengths is, and then see if you would be a match with the team. That's why I really like Pandora's interview process. With Code 2040, after you complete the what is the first step after you complete the
Code challenge?
No, because I didn't get to that point. I didn't need the technical.
I can talk about this year's like we moved things around a little bit from the way that Sharday
Okay.
when Sharday applied, it was like a longer application at first, so it was like a bunch of questions and all of that, and then we did the tech interview or the tech assessment. This year what we're doing is like a very short first stage, which is like your name and some general information, and then the tech assessment, and then the short answer questions, and then phone interview. So it's a little bit moved around, pretty much same elements, but a little bit different than the way that Sharday interviewed. But you still had to fill out like the short answer questions, and I believe you still interviewed too at Code 2040, yeah. So which is a behavior interview, so.
Because my application, I think the order was like you fill out your like basic like name, resume, stuff like that, and then you do short answers, and then you do the technical assessment. Or was it the phone call and then the technical
assessment and then the phone call? Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. It was relatively like behavioral, like Philip said. They was just getting to know you, seeing if you were like a good candidate for the fellows. It was not technical at all, because I think, Phil, you might have interviewed me.
I might have, yeah. I might have. I don't, yeah. It's all a blur now.
Yeah.
Ancient history.
Right.
It was just about a year ago, right? So I guess, Philip, what are some common misconceptions people have about Code 2040 going in? I've talked to a lot of freshmen at Howard, and I'm always saying, go apply, go do this. And they're like, I don't know, I'm not ready. Or, it's almost, I know a lot of people, one common misconception must be people feel like they have to be prepared totally for everything, but I know you've come across some others.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, first of all, I think the biggest thing at first is like, what's the catch? Like why are you doing this? Like why are you doing TAP, or why are you doing fellows? Like what do you get out of this? Like what do I have to pay? And the biggest, I think that's probably the biggest misconception is that like the student actually has to do something, because like why are you helping us? And which is kind of sad when you think about it. It's like, an organization, or especially nowadays, you might not trust like different organizations that say that they can do these things for you. And all we're saying is like, we can try to help you as much as possible get into tech. So, we don't make any promises or guarantees that you're going to get an internship or that you're going to become a fellow. But what we can help you with and what we can guarantee is that we're going to do whatever we can in order to help you through the process. So I think the biggest for the Code 2040 program is the tech assessment. And the tech assessment, you need to practice. Like, if you don't pass the tech assessment the first time, that you are like, we're going to see that and not want you to take it again. And all of those are like super big misconceptions. You can take and retake the tech assessment as many times as you want. So what we opened up this last week was a little bit so now it's a little bit different. So it's the same tech assessment. We use hackerrank.com. It's 3 questions. It's timed. It's 165 minutes. What we do now is when you get your email inviting you to stage 2, which is the tech assessment, we link a Google Doc with the 3 questions that we're going to ask you. So you can look at them. You can write them out. You can practice. You can do whatever you need to do in order to feel prepared for it. But you don't have to feel like, okay, I'm going to ace this. I'm going to get 100%. What we really want you to do is answer each of the questions as best as you can within those 165 minutes and not get a perfect on each question before you move on. So answer each of the questions as best as you can within the time limit. Now, we also understand that taking a timed assessment is also difficult and really like anxiety inducing. So what we've also opened up was last year's API challenge. So last year's API challenge, it's 4 questions. It's not timed. You have all the questions up front, and you'll receive that link once you apply to stage 1 too. So you have an option to take either one. If you pass either one, you get to move forward into the next stage, which is the short answer questions. We don't weigh each one any more than the other. If you take HackerRank and you pass it, awesome. If you do the API challenge and you pass it, awesome. Like, we have no preference.
Okay.
If you
choose.
Yeah, so it's totally up to you. And if you take the HackerRank assessment 4 times and you pass it on your 4th try, then we have 0. Like, we don't even count how many times you took it before. So, like, the thing that I tell students is, like, when you are interviewing at a tech company, they're going to ask you similar questions. So consider this practice for that time. Like, our goal at Code 2040 is not to kick students out of our process. Our goal is to help students get through the process. And at the very minimum, what you're doing is you're practicing technical interviewing. You're practicing your skills. You're working on your coding skills. If you don't pass it this year, then you're still part of our community. You can still do things with TAP, and you can reapply next year. We had a lot of finalists and we had a lot of applicants from last year just reapply this year. So don't be too hard on yourself. Choose whichever assessment or the API challenge, whichever one you feel more comfortable with. And then right after that is a short answer question, which is just getting to know you better. What are the things that you like to do outside of tech? Getting to know who you are, and if you fit as a Code 2040 fellow. And then also, once you pass that, then we have our 30-minute behavioral phone interview, which is conducted by either myself, one of my colleagues, or volunteers. So, and those are like super chill also. So don't feel like this is like really, all of this is just practice for you. And once you become a finalist, then that's when we start matching you with companies, and we can get into that too later on if people have questions about how that works. But the tech assessment is like, just do the tech assessment. Like, that's the biggest thing. Is just like the biggest challenge is just to actually do it and take it, retake it, do whatever you can. And if you feel like it's not your time or you need to work on your coding skills, that's totally appropriate. So that's the biggest thing I'd like to take away from here.
Yeah, that's great. I just want to restate that, you have the option of doing the API challenge, right? Or doing the HackerLink Code 2040 challenge, which you have 4 times to retry.
You have unlimited amount of times to retry. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Cool. That sounds great, and I think it's really great that you guys give applicants options as they're entering the program, so that there's a way for people to showcase their abilities in the way that they're most comfortable with.
Sure.
So I guess I would like to ask Sade, how was your experience like in the program as an intern? Was that your first time working in Silicon Valley, or were you kind of like returning?
So the summer before last, I interned at Microsoft up in Seattle in the Redmond main campus, main headquarters. And then this summer I was interning with Pandora in the Bay Area, where Pandora is actually located in Oakland and not really in the Silicon Valley area. More Black people, more Hispanics, more color, which I loved. I enjoyed being around people who look like me because it's more familiar to like where I'm from. I'm from Baltimore. I'm around a lot of Black people. I go to school in DC. Again, a lot of Black people. San Francisco is more, more white. It's less Black people. And then Silicon Valley is even worse than that as far as diversity. As far as like the actual experiences with both, I really enjoyed interning with Pandora. I enjoyed going to all the CODE2040 events. There are certain times where like there'll be 3 or 4 events a week, and we're just like, oh, I'm so tired. But once we got there, like we felt that it was worth it. We got like something out of it each workshop. Each of them were different. Each of them were catered to a different thing. Even the ones where we had no idea what they were talking about, like the workshop on VCs. I had no idea what anyone was talking about, but we still learned something from it. Like we learned that, hey, this is important. Maybe we should study it. Come back, ask more questions about what VCs are and like how they're important in the world. But yeah.
Cool. I guess another thing I'd like to ask, especially since we're HBCU startup, what percentage of you guys as applicants or fellows have come from HBCUs?
Oh, that's a question I probably should have studied up on before you asked me.
So your interview.
I know, seriously. What I can tell you is from last year, like where our students came from. So we ended up having 400 applicants from last year. We had 400 applicants, 95 of which became finalists. Mind you, this year's application process is a little bit different. We had 95 finalists from 56 different universities. So those were throughout the U.S. as well as in Puerto Rico. So then we also had some international students from Brazil as well. And out of the 95 finalists, we had 35 fellows that were from 23 different universities. So even though that doesn't answer your question exactly, what I can do is I can get get that answered for you. One of the big things that we're doing a little bit differently this year is we have and because we have a little bit of a bigger team, is that we have our campus ambassador program. So we have 10 students from 10 different universities, 10 fellows that are our campus ambassadors at that school. So Sade is one of our campus ambassadors. She's putting on info sessions at Howard. We have students at other universities also doing similar things, looking for as many Black and Latino folks as we can. But I can definitely get that information for you. It's just a little data cleanup, and I can find that. But to say the least, we're not looking for students, or we don't like intentionally look for students that are like at the top 10 CS schools, right? Like that's students apply from those schools, but as we all know, they're also not the most diverse schools in general. I went to a big university, a big name university that is not really diverse, and if companies are only looking at students from those schools, they're not going to get a diverse talent pool. What we do is we look for students all over the place at every single university that we can in order to showcase to the companies that we work with and prove that these students coming from all these different schools have the talent, have the experience, have the projects, and have the language ability, coding language ability to be an asset to your company. And it's working, you know. So companies are asking us like, which schools should we go to? What schools are we missing out of this list? And I think that's kind of like the change that we're trying to create at Code 2040. Our goal is to not is our actual goal of the organization is to not have our organization exist or not need our organization to exist. And I think that's what is different about us is that we're trying to help the companies change themselves from the inside as much as we are trying to help students get to those companies to change their percentages of Black and Latinos at their companies. So it's kind of like a multi-pronged approach, and we know that we have students at all sorts of schools that aren't on target lists that for us is like, why not? And so our goal is really to find students from all over the place to be able to change that, to change Silicon Valley so that Silicon Valley is, you know, more colorful, as Sade said, you know, with more Black and brown folks. I think that's probably the one thing that we would love to see more than anything.
Yeah, man, Sade, I'm a little jealous of you. You make me want to go to Oakland or something.
Don't be jealous.
But speaking of which, real quick before the next question I have for you guys, I want to remind everybody watching that you can click the 9 square icon up top, ask a question. You can ask Philip or Sade about Code 2040, what they think, any personal questions you have about your own application, anything, any magic words you can say to increase your chances of being a fellow or something else. I don't know, you know, how this works, but I know Philip is going to give us all the secrets.
Yeah, of course.
And I know you mentioned when you're talking about how students are selected for different programs from recruiters, how they sometimes overlook certain applicants that are more than qualified or capable. So I would be curious to find out, like, what makes a good applicant, what do you guys look for, and then also, Sade, how did you make sure that you were able to present yourself as an applicant to Code 2040 and to Pandora?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, so one of the things that we're doing differently this year is once you become a finalist, we have you resubmit an updated resume that is school blind. So no school information on there. You can put, you know, your major and what year you're graduating and maybe some of the classes that you've taken, but no school is like your school's not mentioned anywhere on your resume. You'll have your LinkedIn or your GitHub on your resume, which is totally fine because you're going to have your school on there, right? So the goal for the school blind resumes is so that recruiters, once we say like, hey, here are our finalists, they don't just look and see like, oh, okay, this student went to Stanford, this student went to Berkeley, we'll take these. This student went to like a Cal State, this student went to like a small community college, like let me pass on them. What we want them to do is we want to pretty much force them to look at your experiences, force them to look at your projects, force them to look at all of the great things that you're doing, to take that bias out of there. Now, if they really want to go in, I have, you know, students that will email me saying like, hey, a recruiter looked at my LinkedIn, and you know my school's on my LinkedIn, and then I would just reply saying like, yes, you know, that's exactly what we want them to do. We want them to look at your LinkedIn. We want them to look at your GitHub because we want them to get to know you more than just what school did you go to. So I think that's probably the biggest change that we're trying to implement and that we have implemented that I think is working. You know, obviously our company partners are also companies that want to hire more Black and brown folks, and so, you know, I had somebody ask me about like bias in name, you know, name bias, and we don't necessarily have to worry about that since everybody in our pool is Black or Latino. So that's one benefit that we do have of that. Unfortunately for everybody else that's applying outside of Code 2040, right? I mean, it's real, like the bias and, you know, racism or unconscious bias or whatnot is real, and the companies that are looking at applicants through us don't have necessarily that bias. So what other biases do they have? They have school bias. So then we take that out of so now what do they have? You know, so we're trying our best to really revamp the way that they're recruiting, and so that they're not only using it just for us, but they're using it for everyone. So that's one of the things that we're doing a little bit differently. And Sade, I guess you can answer about like how you present, how you interviewed at CODE2040. I mean, Code at Pandora and CODE2040.
Yeah, so one of the things I would definitely say is make sure your resume like really shows you in a great way. Make sure you showcase all your experiences and all your skills right at the top so they know like, oh, this person is great at, I don't know, app building, mobile app building or web development or whatever have you. Even if you're just starting out in programming and you don't really have that much experience, like make sure you say that. Um, Early on, just say, hey, I'm early on in programming, but I really want to learn. I'm really open to doing certain things. I'm a fast learner, or I'm really excited about blank projects. That's how they really see like, oh, this person is, even though they may not have the skills yet, they can learn to build those skills while they're there. I did have a previous internship before going to Pandora, so that did kind of help me out as far as like knowing the transition from classroom to internship because it's totally different. And internships are the great experience to show you like how it is in the real world, which I absolutely love, versus being in the classroom, stuck in the classroom, listening to a teacher talk for hours, not really like getting hands-on like on the projects and stuff. But other than that, other than the have your resume stand out, make sure you're doing those extracurricular activities where you're building those skills. Make sure you're doing little fun projects on the side. Maybe you're building like a little small app or creating a website or helping out with an organization with their website or something like that, just to help keep those skills going and keep building those up. Yeah.
I have a question for you, Sade, if you don't mind me asking, Hannah.
Of course, of course.
How was your like your technical interview with Pandora?
Oh yeah. Honestly, like it was one of the easiest interviews I've ever had, and I guess that was why I loved it so great because I was able to be myself and be like calm and like just talk like gently like through a problem. There wasn't like it was just on a phone call, so it wasn't like they wanted me to like actually like say line by line of a code. They wanted me to just talk about how I would go through like certain problems, and like they got to see like how I thought about it, not necessarily code it, which is a good thing too, because you know like if you know what you're doing or if you know the steps that you want to take to do something, then it's easy to translate that into code. Yeah, so I think it was like one of my easiest interviews.
I'm also gonna have to add that's because Sade is really smart, but she's really laid back about that. But no, I'm sure the Pandora interview was very, very balanced.
It was. And because it was so balanced, the people that were talking with me were very like, I feel like it was very personal. That's what made it so easy for me. And I haven't got that with like a lot of other interviews. Like I had interviews that like were so terrible. Like I went straight into an interview and they'll be like, okay, reverse this tree. I'm like, well, dang, my name is Sade. Nice to meet you. I don't even know what team you're on. But yeah.
Rewrite this API real quick for me.
Yeah, real quick. I don't even know your name. Just do it.
Yeah. It can seem like that.
I think that's probably like one of the biggest like frustrations for us is like how a lot of times in tech interviews you're getting interviewed and they're asking you questions that totally do not relate to the actual work that you're going to be doing at the company.
Exactly.
Thank you.
So
I hate that.
Yes. So then like why ask that question, right? So
because everybody reverses strings.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I think like one of the things that we're trying to do and where we're trying to help influence the reason why we release like what our questions were for the tech assessment so students can study for it is we're also asking companies if you're going to do a tech assessment or a tech interview with a student like one of our finalists, like would you also be willing to release your interview questions or a sample of questions so that when people come in, I mean, if we can be real, like a lot of Black and brown folks and generally underrepresented students do not do well on on standardized tests, right? Like my SATs were not great. Like my I never even took the GRE because I was just so afraid of taking, standardized tests. And so, but we're expecting, us to go into a tech interview in front of like an engineer that you think is like super smart and answer a question that maybe maybe you don't know. And so it's really intimidating. So how do we like mitigate that? And it's like maybe if somebody can study up a little bit, they know that you're not going to come out of left field with the question, then maybe those are ways that we can like get more representation within. And it's not about, I've seen some really like rude comments, online as always, but like, oh, lowering the bar and whatnot. And it's not about lowering the bar as much as it's about making it accessible and making it fair for everyone. And I think it's a big thing for me is about fairness and like how fair is a process. And tech interviewing is, I feel like, at least from being in this world for half a year, is flawed. And it's something that we're really trying to help our partner companies at the minimum learn how to navigate. So yeah, so I don't know where my little rant is going, but at the end of the day, I think it's just like there needs to be some change, and the way we get change also is by having more of you at those tech companies, advocating for this as well. So
I think that your complaints are echoed by a lot of students all across America right now as we're preparing for interviews, because it's kind of hard to know what to prepare for or just how to approach it. I guess it's just one of those things, though, because you have to make sure that you have the skills, but then again, you have to prepare to communicate them, and there's a very wide spectrum of how you may be evaluated. So that's why it's always good to intern at apply to multiple places and look at the CODE2040 applicant playbook as well, because a lot of times as minorities we might not have that mentor or that person or that cousin to say, hey, this is what I did, so that's very, very, very important. So CODE2040, of course, is aimed at minorities in tech, but you guys place it for minorities in tech in companies that may not have the best numbers in diversity. So what advice do you give your students or your fellows when they're going into these different work environments and how to navigate that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. So I won't ask Sade how she dealt with this, and she had like a great experience at Pandora. But we do, but it's a real. I mean, but I'm sure Sade had heard from a lot of her peers about just kind of the industry and where they're at. And I mean, especially as a woman in tech, or a Black woman, Latino woman in tech, has its own extra issues, right? Like the intersectionality of that and whatnot. But so the one thing is with our partner companies, when they sign on with us, they're not just, okay, we want, 5 fellows and then that's it. What we do is we go into those companies, we do, unconscious bias trainings, we look at their job descriptions to make sure that they're inclusive and that they're diverse. One of an example is, and we wrote about this on our blog too, is like the word rock star. Like not too many, underrepresented folks consider themselves rock stars, because of our imposter syndrome or whatnot. But I don't consider myself a rock star. So if I would see like, hey, we're looking for the next rock star, I probably wouldn't apply for that job. But if we're looking for like an awesome person or, a great person, like I probably would apply for that because I feel like I'm an awesome person or a great person. Like that's easier than a rock star. So we go in and we look at those things. We help them kind of navigate those issues as well. And I think on the student end, once they're there, well, one is we also have a relationship with all of the students' managers. So we check in with their managers. We do trainings with their managers. We do trainings with students on how to manage their managers. That's part of like our curriculum throughout the summer. We have like multiple check-ins with the people that work there. If a student is having an issue at their company and they bring it up to us, we bring it up to the company. Like we don't play around with that. Like our students are our number one priority, and they should also be the number one priority for the companies. So one, it's preparing students to be in that type of environment, and the way you prepare students is just by talking about it, being real with it. I mean, we talk about like race, gender issues. I mean, at our office like every day, but you know, that might not be the same at your office at XYZ company. So how do you like build your network in order to have people to talk to about those things? So it's also about making sure that the Code 2040 Fellows environment is safe, and it's a safe space for us to be able to talk about those things with each other without feeling like we have to hide or we have to just not be ourselves. Which is also very hard if you're going to work at a really big company that is not really diverse. So there's really no way to prepare yourself for it outside of just like knowing that you have people to back you up. Like we always say, like you hit the nail on the head, Hannah, with saying that, you know, we don't have like necessarily the resources or like the cousins or the brothers and sisters that are at these companies, but what we like to say, or at the minimum, I like to say at Code 2040 is we're your aunt and your uncle that are like, hey, you know, on your resume, let me look over your resume real quick. Oh, you should move this and put this there. You should add your school projects, add your class projects, you know, those are legit projects that you're working on, especially if you don't have a ton of like tech experience. Add your projects, your mobile apps that you create, add all of those things onto your resume. You know, when you go into a tech interview, this is what you should expect. When you go into a behavior interview, this is what you should expect. You know, oh, you want to negotiate your salary? These are the steps that you should take. Yes, this is a great salary. No, this is not a great salary. You know, we try to be that guide and that person for you, because we know that it's not there necessarily at that company that you might work at. And I think some companies are getting it. You know, some companies get there, and some companies are really great about it, and some need to work on it. But I think if you look at the list of partner companies that work with Code 2040, like at the minimum, you know, those companies are actually trying to do something about it. So that's, to answer your question, there's not really much we can do to like protect you outside of us making sure that we're in constant and consistent communication with like your manager, with the people at your company, and with you. So we have advisor groups. Sade was in my advisor group. We talk like all the time on Slack and like send memes and all of that stuff. And so in order to know that you have that family to lean on when times get tough. So that's kind of what we do at Code 2040 to help you through that process.
I can definitely add on the diversity in tech because I came from Microsoft, which is definitely terrible diversity ratings or percentages or whatever. In my whole building that I worked in during the summer, I was the only black female in the whole building, at least like maybe 100 people. I'm not even sure, it might have been more. There were only 2 black people, one guy and then me, and I was an intern. So that says a lot about like how Microsoft is and the culture there as well. And it was very difficult for me because I was around all these people that I'm not really used to being around. It was hard for me to be completely myself. I wasn't getting the hang of things as fast as they were, and I didn't speak up because I was like ashamed. Oh, I was afraid that they're looking at me like, oh, this black girl don't know how to code or something. But the reason why I love Code 2040 is because all these companies that are partnering with Code 2040 know exactly what they're signing up for. They know that they're trying to get these black students and Latino students to be in their company, and they're helping, they're mentoring them, they're pushing them to do better, even if like you feel like you don't know what you're doing. Like I know I had a friend who felt like, I'm not gonna say nothing, but she felt like she wasn't like doing the best that she could, but like the company loved her and they loved her personality. They loved like her contribution to the team, even though she felt like personally like she wasn't doing as great as she wanted to. These companies know exactly what they're in for, and like what Philip said as far as like Code 2040 helps mentor the companies to like do their unconscious bias and how not to make it so awkward for that one black student in the room or whatever and things like that. As far as Pandora, like I absolutely love Pandora. I'm going back. Like I'm already sold. Their diversity ratings are. What'd you say?
She's going back full time, everybody.
Oh yeah, I already signed the contract and everything.
Yep.
But I was really comfortable at Pandora, even though like there still is an issue with like, oh, there's not a lot of black people in the room. But at Pandora, there was a lot of other types of races as well. There's a lot of females. My manager actually was a black female, which that made me like love my team. There's a lot of different type of races like Indian, Latino, Asian. Like it wasn't just white as far as like at Microsoft, and like that was a change for me, and that's why I loved it so much because the culture was very different. So.
That's really good. That's really good. So, you know, we're almost down to the last 10 minutes. I'm really surprised there are no questions right now. Did you guys see the question button towards the top? The 9-square icon at all? No, any questions as we are going to start talking about the last few talking points at all? Okay, well, I guess we will continue on. So we've talked about the, can you give us a list of the companies that you've partnered with this for the next year of Code 2040 Fellows?
Yeah. So there's a lot of companies, so I'm not going to be able to list every single one, but I can go do my best. Let's see. Intuit, Intel, Apple, Lyft, Airbnb, LinkedIn, Pandora, Panafold, Presence, Carbon 5. So like Presence and Carbon 5 are like kind of like development shops. So they're like smaller. You get to do more like consulting. I'm trying to make sure that I don't list companies that haven't necessarily signed re-signed on. We have two nonprofits that signed on, WOTC and Health Leads. So if you're into like more like social impact nonprofits, there's also those companies that we work for or that we work with. We will have a entire list because we're still signing on the last couple of companies. We'll have an entire list within like the next week or two is when we expect to have actually within the next week we expect to be completely sold out of like our spots. So our companies sign up. We have a limited amount of spots that companies can choose, and then from there we end up having the that's how we end up matching. At Pandora we might have 5 fellows, whereas Carbon 5 we might have 1 fellow. So it just kind of depends on how many fellows they choose to have, and it's a little bit more complicated than that because it's also dependent on like how big the organization is and whatnot. So there's 39 companies, and I've listed about 12 of them. So there's plenty more, and they're in all sorts of. I think Coursera is another one. They're in all sorts of different genres, right? So it's like education, transportation, travel, education. I think it's education. We have just like a bunch of different companies. I wish I could just list them all off on top of my head. But I usually have like a slide with all of them, which helps a lot. I think Sade has seen that slide. But it's really, once that list is published, I think the best advice I give to students who are not eligible for Code 2040, if they're already in their, if they've already graduated or whatnot, I think looking at that list of companies that partnered with us is the best way to figure out like which companies are actually trying to make a difference with their diversity numbers.
Great. Yeah, I totally understand about the list, but it's good to give people a general idea for what types of companies, or just maybe a general like idea, basically. Yeah. So we have a question from Jordan Smith, and he wants to know how many spots by the fellows already.
How many? Could you? I didn't hear.
He wants to know how many spots have been taken or have been filled already for the next fellowship.
So we're still like very new-ish into that. The official number right now is 2 spots that we've officially have. We have multiple offers out. So the way it kind of works is that companies are interviewing, like all of our companies. You imagine 39 companies interviewing all of our students. All of our students and companies are at different stages of the process right now. So there's like a bunch of students in the interview process, a bunch of students in the final process of like accepting their offer and not accepting their offer. Officially on our board, we have a whiteboard with the names on there. We have officially 2. So we have plenty of space for the rest of the students listening to apply and reapply and hopefully become a Code 2040 fellow next summer. I think one thing I didn't mention that Jordan's question kind of brought up is eligibility. So the students that are eligible are those who it's pretty simple, but you self-identify as Black or Latino. And the biggest one is that you are returning to school in fall 2016. So that can be either as an undergrad or a grad student, as long as you're returning to school fall 2016. The main reason behind that is, we are, providing, internships for folks, and, it's an internship, and that's the programming we do for interns is totally different than the programming somebody going into a full-time role would need. So that's the main difference. We're still thinking about how we can help students that are seniors, and if you are a senior, I would highly recommend to just go onto our website and enroll in TAP, and then you can get all of our emails for our webinars, our resume webinars that are coming up, and tech interviewing webinars, invites to our retreats, all of that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And also for seniors, I would also like to recommend the resources on HBCU to Startup and also our Facebook group. There are many people who have posted job and also internship opportunities, which graduating students can also apply for as well. So we have our next question from Austin. Well, first he wants to tell you that your experience sounds amazing, Sharday, and I definitely agree. I'm going to come visit you out there in Oakland and Pandora and everything. And then he wants to know also from you, Philip, will Code 2040 be placing students with internships at venture capital firms?
Yeah, so not yet. So all of our internships are software engineer internships, so you're coding most of the time. If we end up getting where it's open, if some VC firms need a software engineer and they're willing to be a Code 2040 partner, then that's totally on the table. But right now we don't have any. You will meet VCs, you'll meet some venture capitalists, but right now we don't have any companies that I believe that I can think off the top of my head that are VC firms right now.
Okay.
Good question though.
Great. So Jonathan Yuckero wants to know, how long after submitting the short answer questions should we expect to find out if we've made it to the next step of the process? Yeah,
that's a great question. So you will find out early next week, so like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, if you've submitted your short answer questions already. If you haven't, if you're like still in the process, it takes, we're trying to wrap everything up by November 21st, which means that the last time you can take and pass your tech assessment is November 12th. November 12th is the absolute last time you can pass your tech assessment. Then we give you a few days to do your short answer questions, and then we'll read them. So as you can imagine, with the deadline looming, we have a ton of short answer questions to read right now. So we're still like kind of mowing through those so that we can continue to do our phone interviews over the next couple of weeks. So be patient with us, but definitely if you've already submitted your short answer questions, you'll hear from us within really early next week.
That's really good. Are there any other questions? I'm going to start having Sharday and Philip kind of say their last words, or any other things that we didn't cover that they want to make sure that they get out to all of you guys right now. But I think we have room for one more question. So I guess, Sharday, what do you want to tell other students who, you know, are looking to get into your place or just still confused about the whole process?
If you have any questions about the application, feel free to hit us up on Twitter. You can directly mention CODE2040 or Philip or me, and we'll all just like direct you to the right person who can answer your questions. You can also go on the website and learn more about it. Like if like we missed something, you can read more about it there. As far as like just applying, like don't be afraid. Like you can do it. Trust me, because if I did it, you can do it. I promise you. There's a lot of students like when I did the info session here at Howard who are like, I don't think I'm ready to do the technical assessment because it sounds hard or it looks challenging or maybe I don't feel like I have enough skills to even try it yet. Don't tell yourself that. Just do it, try it. You get a lot of, what is it, unlimited chances, so you're able to try it out, stop, pause, look at what you did, correct your mistakes, study, learn more about it, and then try it again. Like, don't be afraid of the technical assessment. It's really not as challenging as it may seem, and it is all worth it in the end. We're a big family, CODE2040 family, and I legit look at these people like my family. I can go to them to anything, so it's definitely worth it. Yeah.
Apply.
Apply.
At the end of the day, you're going to get more experience. You're going to learn more. You're going to learn about what you need to work on more. You're going to learn about your strengths, your weaknesses. You're going to be better prepared. So just apply. I need to remind myself of that. I should replay that to myself every day. So right before I get the last words from you, Philip, one last question came in from Jessica Santana. She wants to know, does CODE2040's long-term plan include intern talent in tech companies outside of SF? So I guess she's asking if you guys are going to be placing fellows in places other than San Francisco.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes. So the short answer is yes. I'm not privy to exactly where we're going to. There's a lot of, as you would imagine, a lot of cities that want us to have other headquarters there. But we will be expanding not in 2016, but in 2017. So be on the lookout. Follow us on Twitter. You'll find out exactly where as soon as I find out. And
cities 2017.
Excuse me.
Cities 2017.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. Probably like I would venture to say like a New York or something like that. But we'll see. We'll see. Tech hubs right now really big. Seattle, obviously, Chicago, New York, DC has a great tech vibe right now. A lot of tech companies out there. Austin. So there's a lot of options, I think, for us, and we have to eventually do like what makes sense for the organization. It's hard traveling when I'm on the East Coast and I'm up at, I'm getting emails at 8 o'clock at night, because my people are still up on the West Coast and it's 5 o'clock and it's still work time for them. That's something we have to end up eventually learning how to navigate and whatnot. So we'll be on the lookout 2017. But for now, the Bay Area in the summer is great. It's cold. It's cold. It's bring a jacket and leave your shirts at home. And unless you plan on driving down to LA for a weekend, but one of the things I want to mention is like for folks that are like the way I grew up, for me I was a first gen low income student, and so I definitely didn't have money to like fly up to the Bay Area and like find housing and rent and all of that stuff. So we do provide a no interest loan of up to $1,400 for students that need the financial assistance to get to the Bay Area. If your company is not already flying you out there, not already paying for your housing, we definitely want to help folks in that situation as well.
I think that's so important to just bridge that gap, because a lot of times I've heard other students also at Howard talking about the process of moving or relocating, just to kind of close that gap and the disparities between actually having the ability to intern at a tech company and then having the opportunity to actually participate in that process of being in Silicon Valley or being at a company or just involved in tech actively. So since we're coming to the end, is there anything else that you wanted to say or tell anybody here, Philip?
Yeah, I think both of you did a great job of telling students to apply. I think that's probably the first step. And just, I think the biggest thing is like believe in yourself. I know the tech assessment can be difficult, the API challenge, can seem difficult, but just believe in yourself and know that we believe in you, and which is why we're here. And so don't, feel free to reach out to any of us. You can find me on Twitter, obviously. I respond there also. But you can email me at Philip, my first name, at code2040.org, and you can just say, hey, heard about, I saw you on HBCU at the startup, and you have your questions. Feel free to just email me, and I'll get back to you pretty quickly. So just apply, believe in yourself, we believe in you, and any questions you have, we're there to answer. I'm here for you, so.
That's great. That's great. I think we're going to close it here since it's 8:02. I hope everybody enjoyed this webinar and definitely got something valuable out of it. I know I learned a lot, and it was great hearing more about your experience, Sade, and learning about the changes to the program as well. So thank you for everybody who joined and listened, and we are going to see you next week at our upcoming Hangouts, and hope to talk with everybody here again.
Thanks, Hannah.